Electrocast.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Get lost in the acoustic brilliance of 3D audio that surrounds you. Feel the embrace of the massage seats that adapt to your every move. Experience the warmth of a vehicle that welcomes you as you approach. We could tell you what makes a Lincoln SUV so extraordinary, but don't take our word for it. Take it on a test drive at the Lincoln Summer Invitation with exclusive offers on now, only at your local Lincoln retailer.
We're entering into an era where video games are going to be able to find smaller audiences with very tight subject matter.
You and I growing up, if we wanted to play games together, we'd take our BMX bikes, go over to a friend's house who has the best setup possible, play video games on the couch.
Moving into the influencer age, game developers do have to be influencers because they need to figure out how to not only book those gigs, but then find their own community and sponsors and everything. Hey, Steve. Welcome to Brain Arcade, man. Dude, I almost said Game Changers. This is Steve Hoffmann. Steve and I met a while back, but I'm going to let him introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Steve Hoffmann. I'm basically a producer, although I hate to say it, I'm the hyphenated. I'm a producer, writer, director. I've got credits in all of the above, but really I'm a producer in unscripted and documentary television. I basically make those shows we call process shows, where I show you how we make something or how something has been made.
Right on. And so the one that everybody will know is?
The one that I met you on. Oh, well, okay. The 2 Emmy nominations for my work as a co-executive producer on Down to Earth with Zac Efron, which was a big Netflix hit. I've done The Toys That Made Us, The Movies That Made Us. Those are 2 Netflix series. Miami Ink. I had no tattoos before I did Miami Ink. And I went down to Miami and lived with all those guys and got a bunch of tattoos. I toured with Kiss. I've done it all. I've traveled the world doing what I love. I'm very fortunate.
So, but then how we met, I'd say it's actually interesting. Can you tell the story about how you actually found me and what we ended up working on?
Yeah, so I started doing a show, which I thought if I could rub a genie lamp and say, what would you like to do next? An 8-part documentary on the history of video games would be very high up on my list.
Yeah.
If I won the lottery and didn't have to work again for the rest of my life, that's probably the next thing I would have done. So I was very fortunate to get to do that. And I started looking around who knows stuff about video games. I started asking around to all of my resources. And my friend that I worked with on a lot of shows, he was an editor on Down to Earth with Zac Efron. We met a long time ago on a great television show called Sex Sent Me to the ER, Mr. Knox Hughes. And so Knox knows you from back in his college days making his student film. And he tells me, I know this guy, Chris Cross. I know this guy, and he worked on a bunch of stuff. I was like, oh, okay. And the more I got to know you and your history, I was like, oh my God, you kind of have a little bit of a real connection to almost every timeline that we were talking about to a certain point. So I was like, this guy is great. And I wanted to use you as one of my anchor interviews to just talk about everything we were going to do. So I think I convinced you, or as I say, conned you into doing the show. And we just took a full day of just talking about all of the subjects, just as a good basis for each episode, just to have someone talking about. I call them the talking heads, the 12 talking heads type interviews, whether it's like Movies That Made Us and The Toys That Made Us and a lot of documentaries like that. You will interview a bunch of people about the same subject, and then you kind of like shuffling a deck of cards, you're intermingling those stories together to tell a story.
Sure. Yeah, that was interesting. Like when I finally watched the show when it came out, I thought it was really fascinating. I never really thought about how these things, how those documentary style shows were made, but having reference from the part that I did, it was fun for me because I could see like, oh, okay, now I understand how the context of what we were recording, like I got to see the master plan. It was very strange for me because like when I drove away, I was like, I don't know. Right. I was like,
that ain't a TV show.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I had some idea, but basically trust the process. But yeah, you and I met. Oh, we had tacos, And he started talking to me about it, and that's basically where we I forgot. I think that was like a 2-hour lunch, right, or something like that.
That's right. I forgot about we had the.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, well, come meet me and we'll have lunch first. We'll talk about it." And yeah, that was great. And honestly, I mean, I knew Knox is such a dear friend. I thought, well, this guy, if this is one of Knox's friends, how could he go wrong? And I really did have a great connection with you. It seemed like we could have gone another 6 hours talking about stuff, but we both had to leave.
Yeah, it would have been easy. Actually, I could have probably done the whole documentary for you.
We did. In fact, there was a point where we realized we need some more backstory on the Nintendo story. And I didn't know how far back we were going to go. So just to cover our bases, I did have you back at my house where we did a pickup interview about just some Nintendo backstory, and had you over here for a secondary interview.
So, do you know what's interesting is like when the show came out, because it aired on Discovery Channel as well as HBO Max. I got like Threads was kind of a new thing, and like somebody that I knew from a decade ago was like at Crisscross. Did I just see you on TV? Right, and I hadn't even thought about it. It was airing like normal TV first, or as well, and it was really interesting. So like it did. So for my POV, like I was like really interested in doing the documentary. One, I've just done so many press interviews over the years that you can't find on YouTube, but like I'm comfortable and I love talking about video games. And I love, as you know, but everybody else may or may not know, video games have always been a huge part of my life. And like, there are more personal stories that I think you and I might have talked about, but there's other stuff that's come up. And so it's like, it's easy peasy for me to do, the stuff that we did. I was like, yeah, I'm absolutely in. I thought it was great. I had a great time.
If I could talk about a couple more voices in there in the early days of doing this. The other one was, there's a guy that I followed on what I will always call Twitter. His name's Mike Drucker. And I know him. He's he's a writer, he's a comedian. And I didn't know anything about him other than I loved his tweets. And I followed him. I just really like the guy. He's just funny. And he uses this picture of himself when he was in 4th or 5th grade. So when you see what he's writing juxtaposed to this picture.
With the picture.
I just love that guy. So then I saw something, he's writing a book about video games. Like, wait, what? And so I reached out to him to get him involved in it, because just the voice of not only a comedian, stand-up comedian, a writer, he actually his early years were working at Nintendo. And so and he knows so much about video games. So he was another one of those anchor interviews when we didn't really have anything lined up yet, because it was hard to get Nolan Bushnell was not an easy get right at the beginning.
Sure.
But I talked to Mike. I was lucky enough to get Mike in. And I want to plug this just so you know. He wrote a book called Good Game, No Rematch. It's about his history with video games. And
interesting.
So I highly recommend that and him. And he was very funny, and we were very fortunate to have him as a part of it as well.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, there's so many times I've wanted to start writing something, right? Like not a memoir, but some sort of anthology or retrospective or something on video games. But every time it's never been the right idea and ingredients. And I think it was because so much of the way we made games before was, and you'll have experienced this from the filming the documentary, so much is private life or public view, right? So much happens behind the walls as far as being a game developer that you can't talk about, or that you just don't talk about. And so the things that go out into the world used to be very, very controlled. Like pre-social media, everything went through PR and marketing. Corporate had a piece of it. NDAs, there's just no way to talk about stuff. But now that I look back on it after this experience and now doing the podcast, I'm like, oh, I think I could actually write something, but I'll just make it really personal. But that stuff was all in the vault for so long, because nobody talked about their personal persona in public,
You'd have to check your you would have to check your NDA just to see, is this legal for me to even to talk about? But I'll tell you, one of the interviews that we did, and you're gonna have to help me remember the name, because sometimes the file cabinet gets stuck. David Crane is one of those people who's a young developer working at Atari. And, when Atari was bought out by Warner Brothers and it became really corporate structured and less fun, they sent out a famous memo that said, hey, here's the top games that sold, and here's how much money, and they knew how much money they had made. So they put everything together and kind of figured out the three of us have made like 90% of their game sales or something crazy like that.
Right.
And don't hold me on that one. But the point is that they said, we want to raise, and we want more than anything recognition. We should be an artist. We should be like, you're buying, an AC/DC album, and you should see AC/DC on the album. Like, they wanted, this is a David Crane game that you're getting here. And they, of course, they laughed him out the door, and they said, no, that's fine. And they started Activision. So there you go.
Right. And so, it's interesting. That never really changed. There was a time when we tried to make game designers into rock stars, and it kind of didn't work. But it's also because the game personalities don't work like rock stars, and making games is not like being a front man.
Well, the main thing, I was going to say, the number one thing is EA, Electronic Arts, tried to do that, their entire ad campaign. And I found out, I interviewed the guy who runs the advertising agency. He's also the guy who came up with the Sega Scream commercials. They were the ones who did the ad campaign for EA early on, and they tried to make them like rock stars. And I think the biggest thing now is, what an egomaniac to put the face of one person on there. When I see an autographed Call of Duty poster, it's like 60 signatures on there. It's hard to sell a band with 60 frontmen.
Exactly. And not only that, though, but like back when EA did that, teams were much smaller. They were more equivalent of like a giant rock band, right? Like 10 to 12 people, or even 25 or 26. Like for me, my favorite size of team is right around 30.
Okay.
Just because everybody, it's like a large extended family. You've got cousins, you know what I mean? Like it's like 30's about right. Like 60.
That's like an old Paul Simon concert. You'd have about 30 on stage.
Exactly. But with that many, there's no, like, it has to be a well-oiled machine, and you might have somebody who does most of the press, but they're not the front man, right? Like,
well, I think what it's become now is the companies. And so now, just like with Call of Duty, you're going to have a Call of Duty out every year, but what company put out that Call of Duty? That's your rock star. That's your rock band.
So that's true to a point. But what's interesting, and like, I'm not going to kick any companies in the teeth, but the people make that reputation, and they're the ones that maintain it. And when they leave, or if they move on to something else, or like, which typically happens when they get bought by a larger entity, right? Yep. Like, basically, like, there's a brain drain that happens, and like all of the people who made it what it is leave. And what's interesting is you'll see company brands start to devalue, because those people have left, right? And so
I can tell you exactly like that. I can tell you it's just like tattoo shops. A tattoo shop is only as good as the artist that it has, and it could get a great reputation, and everyone loves going there. But when those top artists leave, it's just a name on the wall.
Yep, it's just a needle gun and ink. But that's not what makes it special, right? Yeah. And so, like, you can see it only because I have a little bit of a personal tie to it, and I kind of know. I know what's going on behind the scenes of it. Like, you can see it with like Activision Blizzard just got by Blizzard by Microsoft, right? Yeah, a huge deal. It's interesting to me that we're going to see some fall off in, I won't say the quality, but the feel of the games. Yeah. Right. They're gonna change their feel, which will then affect, long term, the brand of the games that come out of that whole piece. But I have like a new theory. We can talk about Microsoft in a minute, but like, they just laid off like 9,000 people. So it's like, it's bonkers. So,
well, I got one more thing to add to all of that. And that is the number one thing I learned about all of the stories from the inception of Atari to Blizzard, to Activision. Every single company starts out the same way. Yeah. It's some dedicated people who want to make something cool and fun, and they put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and they say, we're not going to be the man. I think I'm taking actually your line. Yeah. And then they make something really great, and it's that lightning in the bottle that comes from, whether it's a garage band making a hit song or a group of developers making the most fantastic game. They're putting that heart into it, and then they're all a part of that. Then whether it's the corporate structure, the money, the greed, the infighting, whatever it is, suddenly they lose that magic. But it always starts out the same way. It's people getting together to make something really cool and make a game that they enjoy. They're not trying to say what's going to hit this demographic or we need something that appeals to, it's.
But it even happens if those people don't leave, right? It's kind of like, wait, have you ever talked about the Black Keys at all? It's like a band. Right. Yeah. When you first discover them and they haven't quote unquote sold out yet, or they've gone big commercial. And it's like, it's that inflection point where like the Black Keys is still two guys, right? But there's a difference in the quality of their sound. Like literally the quality is higher, but the angst that they had as a younger band doesn't really show up the same. Like it's like that feel is different. And it's the same with games. Like the people that are making games, there is that lightning in a bottle when you get the right team of people together and there's a vibe and it comes through, right? Mm-hmm. And that's super important. And like I'm always scared, like when a team gets to be so big or a game, employs like thousands of people, what ends up happening is hard to hear any singular voices and it turns into kind of a muddy choir work. I mean, I don't know how we got into a music and games analogy sort of set, but it works.
I'll tell you why. It's because you were trying to make money off of creativity. Right. And it's always a business no matter what. And that's why it's a great analogy, whether it's making an independent movie and then you're Kevin Smith and you get to jump up to making a $30 million movie after you made a $35,000 movie or whatever the story is. It's a universal story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and it's not even, there's no bad or good about it. It's just that the life and circumstances of the people making the entertainment is different. It's changed, right?
It does. And like you were talking about with the Black Keys or whether it's, whatever, there's that hunger when you're trying to, and you're young also. You don't have the same responsibilities when you're 19 and 20 as you do when you're 30 and 40. Right. And when you have in those different responsibilities and also just having money that they're multi-millionaires now. And they're like, but I've got my wife and my kids and we live in the Hollywood Hills and you're over, in Ventura now.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. So I still say like, I am getting paid right now for all the hours I slept under my desk. Right. Which is true, because that kind of investment lasted a long time for me. But I'll give you the other side of that. That sounds terrible, right? Like I spent a lot of time in my 20s sleeping under my desk or on the couch or at the office or whatever. But it wasn't all bad. I was actually really passionate and I was really excited about what I was doing. And honestly, it was go home to a 500 square foot bachelor that I split with someone else. Right. Yeah. And sleeping on the floor on a futon or sleep on this comfy couch where I have food and cereal and like all the Diet Cokes I can drink. And I was just kind of like, it was comfortable for me to stay at the office. And so it's no way to live, but it was actually kind of a little bit better than what I had outside the office.
Right? I think about that now. There are a lot of jobs I had where my office was way better than my apartment. So
And so like the games that I would make now are not the games that I wanted to make in my late 20s because I don't have the same connection to the subject matter or like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like the songs aren't necessarily about sex, drugs, and rock and roll anymore, right? It's
Man, there are so many bands. I play some music in my car. My daughter's 12 and a half for reference.
Yeah.
Like, not listening to that. Oh, can't hear that. Oh.
That's right. That's right. Anyway,
a lot of music from the 80s does not age well.
So, but what's interesting about this, I want to ask you a little bit, dig more into the Game Changers thing a little bit. One of the things I found in our conversations and just getting into it was you have a really deep connection to games in the multiverse. There's a Steve somewhere making games instead of documentaries like that. Like honestly, because you have all of the same character traits and drives that would make you a really great video game maker, or at least in the era that I came up. You know what I mean? And I think if you were younger without a family, you could transition to games like pretty easily. But because we have obligations and stuff like that, it's not an easy transition.
I could leave them.
I could leave them. Yeah, that's right. So I'll talk about the greater state of things. Like we'll wrap up with that. But it's actually not impossible for you to switch over to games soon because it's being so democratized.
Well, I'm going to pause and say I did the ultimate. I learned later on, and I've read about this, that as a game developer, the worst thing that can ever happen is a friend who doesn't work in game development comes to you with this, where they have a great idea for a game. And I did this to Chris. I did this to you.
Yeah.
For me, it's the equivalent of everybody's like, oh, my barber should have his own reality show. And I'm like, oh, okay. And
that sounds great.
Every relative in my life and every friend is like trying to explain to me how they know someone who should have a TV show. I'm like, okay.
Right. Well, but I took you down the like investigation route of like, hey, I want you to be an informed buyer. If you really want to get into this, like step by step, here are the steps. You know what I mean? And like, it's like, I'm not going to tell you no. But I'm gonna like open the door and show you what's behind door number 2.
I will say I'm fascinated. My favorite test subject is my daughter. Again, since I had a Game Boy Pro that she found when she was like 3, And she got really good at like Super Mario World, a bunch of other stuff on there, and she loved it. She was just so into that, and it was so funny. I was like, "Hey, I can't believe that thing works because it's not like it has an interchangeable battery or anything like that." Sure. And she's gone through everything. So she's gone through every iteration. She played all the old school stuff, and now she's on a PlayStation 5 and loves crushing it on Minecraft. Minecraft, excuse me, Fortnite. And I love, and we play old school games together, but she's like my perfect test. Cause I go, what are you guys into now? And they're into the spooky, going through, she and her friends are playing, they're going through a haunted house together. And what I love is you and I growing up, if we wanted to play games together, we take our BMX bikes, you go over to the friend's house who has the best setup possible, play video games on the couch there. Well, they live in different places. And the cool thing is, they can play all over Los Angeles or wherever. They're playing with their friends on their computers, exploring a haunted house together as a team. And that's so cool. Yeah. And so you actually can't make a game now without considering social. Like you can make single player games, but they fall within a specific category. And now the younger audience expects to be able to communicate with each other, do activities together, just there's some social aspect that has to be tied in or else it seems kind of boring. Now that's not 100% true, of course, but like for a modern game, you really have to take that into account is that this younger generation, basically everything else is hooked into social. They need to have their games hooked into social as well. And that's a big component of and I like that. I love hearing them play together, laugh together, just doing things. I almost think it's better to me than knowing if she was just up there glued to the screen on her own, drooling and IV of energy drink. I'd rather she was playing with her friends, I guess. It's interesting though, because the social patterning is different. Because when I was a kid, the social was bragging about high scores, but the actual game playing was solo. I spent more time in arcades by myself as an only child, really trying to have it to myself. Like I didn't care that strangers. The only reason I cared that other people were there was like as if they were in the way of me playing the game I wanted to play, right? Until I got kind of competitive, and then it was like they were targets. Well, I mentioned this before. So over my shoulder, I have it's from The Big Bang Theory, and I guess the four main actors of The Big Bang Theory put together this a cocktail arcade with 60 games on one cocktail arcade, 60 classic arcades, and I somehow got a hold of one because somebody didn't want this. And I love playing it with my daughter because we have that competition. So we knock each other off the scoreboard. We get our initials in. And she is a bit of a savant on Space Panic. Space Panic, okay. Space Panic. And if you watch Game Changers in there, you will see Space Panic was kind of popular before Donkey Kong. And you can see it's got the same color, the girders. There's a lot of similarities. If you look at Space Panic, you will see the direct connection that this was popular. And then they, lo and behold, come out with Donkey Kong. Right. Everything, I'm not saying they ripped it off, but everything influences each other. She's really good at Space Panic, and I love watching her play it. And I've discovered so many great games. There were games as a kid. Kicks is fascinating to me. Now, I would never drop a quarter in that because my quarter would be lost in 15 seconds, and that was not fun. The quarter was way too precious. There's this dude. I'll never forget his name. I've never stayed in contact with him, but he was an older guy. His name was Dave Spiegel. That guy could play kicks. Like, it was just mesmerizing. That was a fun game to watch someone else play. Right. And I love playing it on this machine now. So kicks, that's interesting because when I was a kid, I was fascinated by it, but it was almost like I had a resistance to it because my brain was like, I conceptually understand what to do, but I can't figure out the route to success. Like that weird sparky thing grows and does different things. And now when I look at it, I'm like, oh, it has a pretty clear pattern. But when I was a kid, it seemed kind of random. And I was like, this just feels like I'm throwing my quarter away. And then you watch someone who knows what they're doing play, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. It's kind of like watching people play Tempest. Like Tempest to me was one of those games that was super fun to watch because you would watch something who was really good at it. And then so it's interesting. Back in those days, when you saw somebody play an arcade game really well, you could see that their eyes were not actually focused on any specific thing. Yeah. The way they worked, they saw the whole board, right? And so it was almost like a deadpan stare, but they could see everything, and they were almost like really quiet physically. They were hooked in. Like it was like muscle memory what they were doing. I have a Stargate Defender, and one of the greatest things about Stargate Defender is the map. You get the same thing. What's the game? There's a car game. It's a similar thing. You have a little map of the whole
Rally
deal.
X.
Rally X, thank you. I have Rally X 2 on this.
Yeah.
You can kind of like, that map is so key. And you don't want to just stare at the map. But as you're saying, the big wide picture things, the map is so key to that.
So there's a genre of games called shmups, right? And which is a mashed together, almost a portmanteau of shoot 'em ups. Mm-hmm. Right, which is already jargon and slang, but like shmups is what it's I'm into, and that's when you play a game. It's like a bullet hell, where you're like a plane, and there's all kinds of shit in the world, and you shoot 'em ups, right? The trick to those games is actually not to watch your plane.
Yeah,
as you have to take in the board and watch everything else, and so like you just know where your plane is in relation, and you sort of play them looking ahead. And it's like the people who are really good at it, it's wild. You can see their eyes are focused, like statically focused almost.
There's a whole theory on this, and it's basically the difference between hunters and farmers. And us biologically as humans, and how we would get together as a society and partition out, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Gamers, game developers, people that they say have ADHD, it's not a deficiency. It's not some problem that needs to be taken care of with drugs. You need to find how you can harness this great talent that you have, because the same person who can't focus on one thing for too long is the same person who can look at the big wide screen and see where the bullets are
and see all the moving pieces. Yeah,
the same person who's going to see that little tiny movement, and that's the rabbit, and we're going to get that thing, kill it, and eat it for dinner.
Right. But counterpoint to that, there's Animal Crossing.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
To you, my darling.
No, to you.
The Roses were living the dream.
More champagne for me, please.
Until it all came crashing down.
He got fired.
Fired?
From the director of Meet the Parents.
You're a failure. Women don't like that.
If you need a shoulder or an inner thigh to lean on.
On August 29th.
I just want the house.
We want everything.
Wow.
Stop.
Stop!
And see The Roses.
These people.
The Roses. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent. In theaters everywhere, August 29th.
Well, what's interesting though is you're right. Like the general perception of what a gamer is has traveled that line, because those are the games that generally sold well. You know what I mean? Like historically, even though there were like precedent in numbers for other games, but like the ones that are easy to sell and exciting are the ones that are more aligned with the hunter archetype, which is because they're easier for marketing to sell. Like watching a plant grow is hard to market.
I remember when they did like some sort of bass fishing game that came out. I'm like, who in the world wants to go bass fishing?
That game sold boatloads. Almost everybody that had a Dreamcast bought the bass fishing game for Dreamcast, and it came with that little controller.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, did you ever play Seaman?
Sure didn't. I don't know that one.
Okay, like write that down, Google it later.
I don't want to look away from you right now, but I gotta look this up. I will say this, and I'm either stealing this from you or somebody. I always say, if you give someone credit 3 times, then it's yours. Your grandma who plays Candy Crush on her iPhone 8 is a gamer.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's right. Here's some flip facts for you. Over 50%, I think it's 51 or 52% of players of World of Warcraft, like OG, were female.
52, did you say?
Yeah, 51, 52%, something like that.
Let me tell you about the television industry. If I'm not mistaken, just the population in general, there's more women than men. So women are just 52% of the population. We were doing a show where the ratings came in and they go, oh, it's our audience is women. And I'm like, really? We're going to change everything. This is a great decision making by TV executives once again. So we're shifting the whole ship, but we're just going to turn around because our audience is women. I'm like, how many? What's the thing? They say, well, it's 52% women. But watch our show, and I'm like, that's the population of the earth. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Wait, are we? If it was 75 or it's 80% women, I could get it, but like that's not.
What you're saying right now is that we are humanly agreeable.
Right. I think
like,
this means
it's not a business change sort of situation.
Doesn't seem like, why should we just shift everything we're doing? What I'm hearing is that people like the show, and it's skewing on both sides. Why would we make some huge changes to chase after a demographic that is crazy? Unless maybe it goes beyond that conversation. Maybe it's like, you don't understand. There's certain advertisers that we need to get that 52 up to a 58, and then we can get Pond's cold cream or whatever stupid thing it is.
I call it spreadsheet design, right?
Right.
Where you start to make metrics decisions based on, or metrics decisions to change the content. And there's this.
It is the same way we get a guy who was in charge of fabric manufacturing to be in charge of Atari and start making some big wise decisions.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's an interesting segue. So like that's kind of where we're at right now. Is the spreadsheets are winning, or they have won, but now the spreadsheets are having a hard time. So like we're at a place now where the artistry is not celebrated from a business side standpoint. Like creativity is important, but only in relation to how it changes the spreadsheet. The actual ecosystem around games is kind of broken. Like, have you been keeping up with that at all? It's the same things happening in the entertainment.
I see the stuff with the layoffs and just think of you and everybody else. Yeah. Like, oh God, there's another just swath of layoffs. And I'll tell you, as a producer, I'm going out for jobs that I have like nominated for Emmys for the exact thing that they're advertising. And I can see that in the algorithm, there's like 280 people who have applied for one job,
get a job,
and I'm in the
there's
top 20%.
There's going to be tens of thousands of them
that's
that can't
great,
do anything
I'm
but
still in
games.
They're around.
Right, there's still 200. Essentially, we're going to have to build a
50 people.
I'm trying to help with that. It's so
bad in games right now.
Some of the stuff that I'm working on, which I'll talk about some other time. But like,
we need to shift.
So in the beginning of the layoffs, like 2022 to 2023, right? You could apply on LinkedIn, and it would say how many people to the number have applied.
Yeah, he was like, okay, I'm going to shed
it got so bad. I had a friend of mine. He's
I'm just gonna not everyone's Prince, right?
He applied for a job. Sure, and it said like
his first album.
7,500 people have also applied for this job, and he was like,
it's to make it on your own.
Like
and say, listen, I could sell 20 million. And I found, and I talked to someone else, one label, a commercial label, or I could AI. There's a computer program that's gonna weed through everybody because how could you go through 7,500 people? It's gonna be the OnlyFans missing all of the good points. And who knows if you've been a micro world of you're gonna follow these people who are making stuff based on that, or you get a celebrity attachment to it. So you have someone. I know I'm big on bringing up Kevin Smith's name right now.
Most of the people,
someone, a small developer says, Kevin, I want to use your name.
They don't know the
and make it
to tell the algorithm
Smodcast thing or whatever.
What you need.
Right.
It's usually some
game and,
corporate bullet point.
I'll give you half of it, whatever.
Which is like,
I would even say
like 5 years ago, it would have been, hey, Kevin, we're going to license your name, and then I'm going to take
arbitrary metrics that people get weeded out.
Even that's not going to work.
They might be awesome
because licensing in games is really
three projects that failed in 6 years.
What's breaking?
They'll get weeded
this is what
out.
I want to try and work
just
on.
one interview with that person, you're like, oh my
build
God,
it and they will
clearly
come.
not this
Broken.
person's fault that they
really
because they're great,
right? So build it
and
first, and then
they don't get that opportunity.
Go
market or get your audience.
Like
that whole model
is
essentially broken.
You have to invert out.
You have to go build a community first. Although I do have to admit,
find a way to get
your audience before the
we
game
went
for hiring designers, and so that's tough when you're talking about. At some point, you have to go through them because the way you and I think, but that's when one pagers were very common. So I'd lift them up. The younger generation doesn't necessarily. I would skim them this way. Like what's attractive now? Most were access. Like I was looking involvement
criteria or
asking questions, being able to influence the design. All I was trying to do is get people more human.
One guy had pretty good experience.
But it's not about show me the pretty picture, and it had like
a little bit more like
playing video games,
what's my story,
and what's going on.
This is built off,
and I had to look it up. The way social media works right now, right?
Like fish, is that right?
Whatever. So I had to look it up, and I went, okay, we're calling this.
I'm going to learn how to.
He made the C-Man game actually, right? You're going to tell me,
right? And they just, oh my God, I think he wishes he made the C-Man game. When you see C-Man, that's only to be designed by Japanese.
I saw the thing commercials.
It's fantastic.
To find someone who has 500,000 followers
video game was
of a
actually
particular thing and sell the soap that way. And what you can do is you find game influencers, someone who's on Twitch with a ton of viewers, and you create a game that they do. I saw the weird play. That weird face freak me out. I was never interested in that. I like being a ninja, or there were a lot of things I like to do as a gamer. But
that's not always a surefire hit.
Ichthyology.
That's
them
has
in.
most
Yeah,
of
well, but
the build it and they
ichthyology-
will
so
come.
then- well,
like,
no, but
crowd.
my
Have they
point
tried
was-
that? Have they tried that?
Yeah.
An outlier
plenty
in
of
his
that.
resume.
There's
And
a
that's what
ton of
got
that
him
going on.
the-
There's like agencies.
Well,
and
another thing I heard
I have a
with
friend.
with
He was
the,
building
with the
bespoke
people
games
who
for
are trying
specific
to fool the
influencers.
algorithm.
So
They
a game
look for those
only
bullet
for their
points that are
audience,
written,
right? And that's
And they
pretty
incorporate
successful.
words- they incorporate
but the
word for word what
model
they're
is
looking
different,
for,
right?
even
Whereas
if
like
they
you and
have
I
to say,
think about
I
like,
don't have
hey,
such
how do
and
I get
such,
this thing to
whatever,
go
or
worldwide?
haven't yet done
It's
such
more
and
like,
such, because
they've got
it will pick up that
50,000
you have
followers.
that. It's in
Here's
your
the right
cover
game
letter,
and
and it gets
monetization
pushed
for
up
that.
to the top.
And it's like,
right.
because
It's
it's they have to
insane.
tailor it to them
The
as
algorithm's
opposed
not
to
actually
this
making,
thing's gonna go
any
big.
decisions.
It's just
Right?
filtering.
Yeah.
It's a
Right, it's a
different,
literal
it's
filter.
a different
And
design
so,
process.
I don't know.
completely.
It's just it's
Interesting.
upsetting.
And I guess
right?
you said the number
but,
one
but
word,
there's also not enough
monetization.
money to go around.
Just
for
like in
everybody.
television, I always ask people, do you know why they used to have the fall preview? And we've both been on the side of all four shows came out where I just have to go through. That's when the new cars were being stuff. Like I look for somebody and they had listed a show putting their commercials in the TV shows, and that was and I called to find out. Like I've never heard that the television industry.
Really?
Now we don't watch commercials. Now we have
that's
more
just-
choices.
That's just crazy.
Before we had
Well,
3 channels to watch. And
I
so
want
it's
to bring the
fascinating. Or you
Microsoft
pay
thing
for
back up for
cable.
a second.
And you
because
go on
I
cable
think
and you just channel
to wrap
surf.
this back
You
up,
got, again,
and pull it
commercials
back
are
in.
driving
You
it
mentioned
now.
that you were like,
We
"Hey,
wanna
Chris,
watch
I got the
commercials,
idea
or
for
if we
it.
do,
Let's go do this
no
stuff."
one's
And we
spending
started
that
talking
money.
about it and go through it. And I said earlier, hold on to that thought, because I think the way I see the future, it's actually going to be much easier for you to just pursue that and go for it. Now, it's not the same pattern that you and I would have thought before, which is like, I'm going to pitch a thing and then it's going to get made. It's more like, how do I make this myself? And then how do I find my own audience, right? Like basically how do I bootstrap this whole thing on my own?
Yeah.
But like Microsoft laid off 9,000 people. My estimation is that since 2022, actual trackable numbers is like 40,000 people. And then, by the way, nobody pitches games to publishers anymore. I mean, they do, but they like companies pitch games, right? There's no individual.
I can
pitchers.
tell you about pitching TV. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's over.
You have to come in with a support structure, or else the publishers don't even care.
What they're doing right now is it's the same. I think we're going to go to this. We're kind of going. It's the same reason why they just don't go hunting down for bands anymore. They're going to go to YouTube and see who is making their own music.
Who's got the most views and likes?
Yep, exactly. And they're doing that. I've seen shows for a major cable company, and this is a show that I'm up for right now. They're taking a show that's really hot on TikTok. They're just going to develop it for this major cable company. That's how it's
crazy.
going.
It's crazy. Damn you, Catfish, the TV show. Like, because that's essentially the story of Catfish, right? Or even like, Cobra Kai. But for every one of those, there's like 10,000 just trash, right? Not trash, but like low quality. However, that doesn't mean they're bad. Like, we're entering into an area an era where video games are going to be able to find smaller audiences with very tight subject matter, because we've got all these people like they can't get a job. There's going to be tens of thousands of them that can't do anything but make games. And essentially we're going to have to build a new ecosystem around them. And I'm trying to help with that with some of the stuff that I'm working on, which I'll talk about some other time. But like, we need to shift around the audience a little bit, right?
What happens is it's the same thing. Prince did this a long time ago, where he was like, okay, I'm going to shed the record company model. I'm just going to, not everyone's Prince, right?
Right, sure.
His first album, he did all the instruments. He could do all that stuff. He doesn't need anything, but it's to make it on your own and say, listen, I could sell 20 million albums by going under, a commercial label, or I could sell 200,000 albums and make it 100% myself. And so basically it's going to be the OnlyFans of video games. You said a micro world of you follow these people who are making stuff, or you're going to get a celebrity attachment to it. So you have someone, I don't know why I'm big on bringing up Kevin Smith's name right now, but someone, a small developer says, Kevin, I want to use your name and make it, part of the Smodcast thing or whatever. And it's this little tiny game, and, I'll give you half of it, whatever.
I would even say, like 5 years ago, it would have been, hey, Kevin, we're going to license your name, and then I'm going to take it around to publishers. And that's not going to work anymore, because licensing in games is really like a mess. Oh, you know what? I need to have another guy on. He does licensing in games. It'd be fascinating to just talk to him about it. What's breaking, and this is what I want to try and work on flipping, is build it and they will come is broken.
Oh, really? Okay.
right? So build it first and then go market or get your audience. Like that whole model is essentially broken. You have to invert it. You have to go build a community first, or like find a way to get your audience before the game even comes out. And so that's tough when you're talking about something that might take you 6 to 12 months, because the way you and I think, it's like, hey, I need to put out marketing material, right? But the younger generation doesn't necessarily think this way. Like what's attractive now is like access, having involvement, asking questions, being able to influence the design, you know, more human relatable engagements, which is not about show me the pretty picture, right? It's a little bit more like, what's my story? What's going on? This is built off of the way social media works right now, right? Like whatever, I'm 45 years old and I'm going to learn how to drive at 300 yards. Come along for my journey, right? And they just they build that rapport.
I feel like it's almost like we're in the world of the gaming influencer at this point. The same reason why we don't, you know, it's almost pointless to sell commercials at this point. It's easier just to find someone who has 500,000 followers of a particular thing and sell the soap that way. And what you can do is you find game influencers, someone who's on Twitch with a ton of viewers, and you create a game that they debut, they play with their fans, and suddenly you're building up that community that way.
So what's interesting though is that's not always a surefire hit either, and that's what has most of the build it and they will come crowd.
Have they tried that? Have they tried that?
Yeah, plenty of that. There's a ton of that going on. There's like agencies, and I have a friend, he was building bespoke games for specific influencers. So a game only for their audience, right? And that's pretty successful. But the model is different, right? Whereas like you and I think about like, hey, how do I get this thing to go worldwide? It's more like, hey, they've got 50,000 followers. Here's the right game and monetization for them. And it's like you custom tailor it to them, as opposed to this thing's going to go big, right? It's a different design process completely.
Interesting. And I guess you just said the number one word, monetization. Just like in television, I always ask people, do you know why they used to have the fall preview? All the movies came out in the fall, or excuse me, all the TV shows came out in the fall. It's because that's when the new cars were being put out. And the car companies were putting their commercials in the TV shows. Car commercials were driving the television industry. Now we don't watch commercials. Now we have more choices. Before we had 3 channels to watch. And so it's fascinating. Or you pay for cable and you go on cable and you just channel surf, and you've got, again, commercials are driving it. Now you don't want to watch commercials, or if we do, it's no one's spending that money.
It's wild. Well, so this is why I say marketing is broken. I can't tell you what the last 3 banner ads are that I saw, and I can guarantee that I saw at least 3 in the last hour. But they've gone, because we now have like eye filters. I don't even need like a ad blocker because my brain doesn't see it. Right. It's just irrelevant, except that it takes up screen space, and I just see that there's a box that's taking up screen space, not what's in it. Right.
And if it's too many ads, I just click off the page.
You're just gone. Like you just I bounce, especially like news sites or anything like that, where you're reading text and you're like, oh, like I do not need the hair replacement treatment that you're trying to sell me. Please. Like I'm good. The interesting thing though is like that thought process, and you still have to monetize. I'm still solving for this, but that squashes art. Right. And so we need to find a way to both encourage art, but let people make a living off of games, so that they're encouraged to, everything doesn't have to be a hit. They can make something for 10,000 people, or they can make something for 20,000 people, which is absolutely doable. But it's, you have to wrap your head around a different process and business model and way to approach it.
And what I watch bands go through this, because I worked on a TV show called Making the Video. And when I started making the video, they had these 3-day budgets. They were making a huge budget music video, take 3 days to make it. We'd world premiere the video. And all of a sudden they chopped the money down from the tree. And it was when, I'll never forget, I was at a dinner. I worked for a director at one point. I was at a dinner. It was like Christmas Eve or something like that. And it was a beautiful couple who were both record industry giants. And this gift that my boss's wife had given me was a very, very early MP3 player. It was like from Radio Shack, and it was not an iPod. It was
like a Zune or something.
It might as well, but very early on, 1990, I guess 1999. And they go, "What is that?" And I go, "It's an MP3 player." They go, "What's that?" I go, "It plays music." They go, "What do you mean?" And I thought, "Oh my God, this is about to happen." These 2 people who run like MCA Records and Universal Records have no idea what MP3 is, and sure as crap. In about 2 years, it was decimated. It was gone. And I guess what I'm saying is, what bands figured out is there's nothing like live music. They make their money in merch and tickets.
Yes, that's
and
right.
B, they had to attach like Pepsi to it or whatever it is. You gotta incorporate, a sponsorship to your music practically.
Right. And so full circle, and I think we end on this part. Like somehow we ended up in the like why game developers aren't rock stars, but we kind of need to redefine that. In that moving into the influencer age, game developers do have to be influencers because they need to figure out how to not only book those gigs, but then find their own community and sponsors and everything. And so like they have to come out from behind the wall, but they don't necessarily have to come running out with like spiked leather jackets and like, a curled lip. They just need to actually engage with the audience and play like coffee shops.
And I guess ultimately it's the creativity. It's the same creativity that writes a hit song that is just familiar enough that we love it, but ahead of the curve that it's something we haven't heard yet.
Yeah, exactly. And a specific lens or viewpoint, right? That could resonate with people. So anyway, dude, we're about out of time, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Do you want to come back on another time? Like, I think we could do this for like 6 hours. Like, I
think so too. Can I do a little bit more game history?
Yeah, go for it, dude.
So, I was fascinated by video games. I was fascinated by television or screens. I remember the first time I saw a VCR, and I was like, oh my God, you can control television. Yeah. It was the same thing with like Pong or, video, Atari 2600, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was controlling the TV, and I was just fascinated by that. Cut to when I get into the television, when I get into the movie industry, and I'm working for this director. He loved playing video games, and he would do something like Duke Nukem. Right. And he would get to a certain point where he kept dying. And so he'd pause it. He'd have to go to a meeting, and he'd say, here, get me past this bridge or whatever it was. I'd sit down, and while he's in some meeting, I would get him past that and hit pause so he could jump on and play the game again. I was playing video games professionally. This was the greatest moment in my life. I thought I had just absolutely made it. I just an assistant to a director, but I was like, this is so cool. And of course I learned the movie industry. He was also a writer. He wrote, he produced, he directed. So I learned everything from this internship practically. It was a paid job where I got to play video games and learn the industry. So
the amount of people that are core gamers or like hardcore game players in the entertainment industry is ridiculous. Like it's just because there are like, it's unstructured time. Like you work long hours, but there's lots of unstructured moments. And so like there are these opportunities of like, well, what am I going to do? I can't really start a book. I've got 15 minutes. I can play a video game. Like these little things happen. So like, it's like at some point you and I were going to meet regardless. Like it was going to happen. Like whether it was through Knox or some other point of contact, I think it would have been like inevitable. So
I will say also that the other thing, that's why I love this JAMA that was 60 and 1 to jump on and clear your head with a game, play 1 or 2 rounds of Donkey Kong, whatever. It's just a blast.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting? I think that really works with older games because they don't have all the extra layers.
Yeah.
And the lower, here we go. I can tie everything back to Brain Arcade now. So like the lower level gameplay of the 80s and 90s was really like besides the context, what really appeals to your lizard brain. It's the 4 Fs, like fight, flight, feed, and fornicate. Like basically it just appeals to your id. What's interesting about that is when you go back to that brain, it becomes a singular focus and you wipe out all of the other things that are troubling or bothering you, or your subconscious is working on them. But it's like a palate cleanser, right? I'm going to go play Zookeeper for 15 minutes and you come back and you're like, oh, what was I doing? Then you can reset or restart. So I think it's awesome.
The other thing I'll tell you is after making the video, we were without jobs, and I was like, what can we do next? And he came up with this idea of making the game. And I said, I want to do that so badly. I had so much life entrenched. And so what I would do is I got to go to all the top developers, interview everybody who was working on the game. We'd world premiere something at the end. I remember we did the one for Xbox. There was I met the guys from Major League Gaming. We shot a tournament.
Yeah.
I met this guy named Zios, who was like the #1 player in Halo. We did the Halo game. And so I got so entrenched in all that. I met all the guys at EA, and I got to go through their coveted room and take as many games as I wanted. It's just all of my career, there's been a lot of my career in television has kind of been simultaneous
in
with video
parallel
game stuff. Yeah.
Oh, the EA company store, man. If you don't work there, it's amazing because you could go in and get it's just like a candy store.
He said you've earned your time. You could go. I think he called it the room. And I walked in with a couple of things. He's like, get back in there.
Yeah. All right, man. We got to jump.
Well, thank you just for A, I'm so glad to know you, and B, it's just really cool to be a part of this. I appreciate it.
Oh, dude, thanks for coming on, man. I'm happy to have made a friendship that I think is going to last for a long time. Now, I don't want to think about how long a long time is, but like for a while. Yeah. All right, thanks, Steve. Brain Arcade is a Princess Hermit production, produced by Kyrene Kim, music and mixing by Jonathan Ontiveros. The podcast is hosted by me, Chris Cross. You can find me and my other endeavors at coffeewithcross.com.
Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage behind the scenes of show business spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your hosts for the Candle Power Hour.
Hey guys, it's your girl Yasia. I want to share some really exciting news with you. I just dropped my first ever single, Spell on You, off my upcoming debut EP, Devil's Room, on RM Records. It's simply devilicious. Check out Spell on You wherever you listen to music. Bye for now.
I never thought I'd fall in love like this. It's time to close the chapter, but I think I needed this.